Okay. So last two class that we have seen this TEM. In the first class we discussed about the construction of TEM. How does the machine works and what is the similarity between TEM and XRD SCM that we discussed. Next class we discussed about SAD pattern. What are all the ways that we can use SAD pattern that we discussed for identifying a crystal structure, identifying a single crystal or a nanocrystalline materials, amorphous materials. So those parts that we discussed. And in addition to that, we also discussed about the how do we use this SAD pattern for getting the bright field and dark field imaging. So today we will discuss about indexing of pattern. Two type of patterns that we have. One is actually we have a ring pattern. We have more than two type of patterns, which we have seen in one of the slides. There are many different type of patterns: a Kikuchi pattern, CBED pattern, nanobeam diffraction. Then you have a ring pattern, spot pattern, textured pattern. So there are so many different patterns are there. It gives a different kind of information. So, but in this lab class, what we are going to do is actually we'll straight to understand how to index a ring pattern and how to index a spot pattern. Spot pattern, especially only the technique what I'm going to show is useful only for indexing the cubic system. Non-cubic system, we need to have a software, otherwise it is difficult. It can be done, but it is a bit difficult. So this is what the thing that we are going to do. One more thing that I told you, like growth direction. Suppose if you work on a nanomaterials, you wanted to know what is the kind of growth direction we have, how it is growing, the particle means the nanopod rod has grown. All those things that you can do index it based on the technique which I'm going to show on today. Okay. So finally, towards the end, I will show how we are going to connect this indexing of spot pattern with the image. Yes, that I'll do. Maybe I have to tell one more point which I missed in the theory class. That is about the rotation axis that I will discuss today's class itself. Okay. So these are the things that we are going to cover. Okay. So let me share the slide now. Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Now, let us look at the pattern. Okay. So this is what when you have a image that is in the image plane, pattern is in the backfocal plane. Another thing is pattern is in the reciprocal space, which I will discuss separately. Maybe in today's class, if I can give a brief about why we need reciprocal space, that you yourself can understand why we need a reciprocal space, that we will see. And then there is a connection between this is image plane that you'll see, this is in a real space. Okay, but there is a connection between these two, because the image what you are seeing in the nanorods, whatever that you are talking about, or this is the direction that we would like, let's say this is the direction it has grown. We would like to know which direction it has grown. What is this direction? So we would like to know that. So that is the reason, one of the reasons why we are indexing the pattern. Okay. So all this connection, we will look at it. Before getting into the spot pattern is the one which is actually the difficult part. Before getting into that, let us start working on the ring pattern. Okay, for that, we should need to understand a little bit of basic. Let's say that you take, this is a pattern that you have. Okay, now this is actually we call this is actually an incident beam axis. Okay, now this is actually your transmitted beam. Let me put it like that. This is your transmitted beam. Okay. Now this is your one of the diffracted spot. Okay. Now what you're going to do is you are going to connect it all these things together. So that is what you are seeing here. So what you see here is this is actually the beam which is actually coming out. Then it is getting diffracted. This is the spot you have a transmitted beam. This is actually one of the diffracted beam. Okay. Now this angle is actually 2 theta. So when you look at the ring pattern, okay. So when you look at the ring pattern, you have something like this. Oh, so this is actually your transmitted beam. The concept is same. You take only this particular, let's say this, only this particular aspect thing. Now you connect the same way what we did there. So you connect it. Basically, this is a kind of a like a radius r, so that you can actually combine, you can arc it. Okay. So this is actually this ring is actually a family of plane. It can be 100, 110, whatever it may be. It's a family of plane. Okay, the concept wise it is more or less similar. This is here 2 theta. Let us assume that this is actually some distance r. Okay, this distance is which is we generally call distance L. L which called camera length. This is a constant for a particular equipment. If you have an equipment, the camera constant is constant for the particular equipment. So that is the reason actually we do run a calibration file. Once you run a calibration file with the known value, let's say if we know some value, this one, from there we can actually calculate this value. This is how we do the, if you know some material which is having the R value is known for us, then easily we can actually reverse, we can calculate. If you do it for a 10 rings, automatically you should get a same. Let's say you do for this one, let's say this is R1, this is R2, and this is this distance is R3, and this distance is R4. If you know all this value, automatically it will become a constant at some point. We'll discuss that point at some point of time. So this constant you can get it. This is we call camera length, which is actually a constant. So now, what we would like to have is, we know that this is actually what we get is by measuring it. You can measure this value. Any image you can actually measure it. While measuring it, you can actually identify the this particular distance, how much it is. That we can do that. What we want is, what is HKL value it possesses. This is unknown to us. Okay, so what is known to us is only the R value. We know R1, R2, R3, R4. If you have a 10 rings, you know all those things. You know the R values. But what is unknown to us is this HKL value. This is something the family of plane we would like to identify. Once you know that, you can identify what crystal structure it is and all those things that we can identify. So for that, what is known to us is R is known, L is known, but what is unknown is actually HKL value. So now if we look at this particular thing, it is basically, you can say tan 2 theta. What is tan 2 theta here?
So R by L.
Sir, R by
R
L.
by L. Okay. Tan 2 theta is R by L. In TEM, as I said, compared to HCM, in TEM actually 2 theta is very small. Okay, unlike in TEM, we move so much of the theta to get the diffraction, but here only when you have planes which are parallel, you start getting a diffraction. But those are the places where you have a 2 theta is very, very small. So when the 2 theta is like 2 theta is small, then tan 2 theta you can write as a 2 theta. Okay. In that case, 2 theta is equal to R by L. Fine. What is now we are getting connection is there is a relationship between theta and R and L we got. But what we need is HKL value. HKL is connected with the D. Okay. So HKL is connected with D. So for any material, if D is known, then you can actually calculate the HKL value. Similar to X-ray diffraction, if you know the 2 theta value, you can compare with the standard JCPDF file or we call that standard JCPDS data, PCPDF WIN files. Using that, you can actually calculate it. What is the HKL frame? What is the material that you can understand? So now in that case, what we know is actually what is the relationship between a D and theta. So this is actually a condition for diffraction. So we also know a condition for a diffraction where you have connection between theta and D. What is that equation? 2D sine theta is equal to lambda. Okay. Again, theta is very small. So what you can write is 2D theta is equal to lambda. Okay. So what you can do is 2 theta is equal to lambda by D. Okay. Now you connect these two equations. Let's say this is 1 and 2. Compare 1 and 2. You start seeing that R by L is equal to lambda by D. So what we want is actually the D. That means you rearrange the equation within this L lambda by R. This is a very, very important equation for understanding the ring pattern. Okay. This, as I told you, L is actually a constant for a particular machine. Suppose you have one TEM, then L is actually constant. Similarly, for when you operate TEM, you're going to operate at a particular constant kV. That means the lambda is also constant. So what we generally say is actually this is a L lambda is actually a basically we call camera constant. Okay. So L lambda is actually your camera constant. So this is the one when I run a calibration file, this you can calculate it. Let's say suppose I'm operating this machine at 80 kV, then because that is you have to calibrate it for running a machine at 80 kV, 120 kV, 200 kV. You do that, then automatically you get a camera constant for this particular sample. Now what you are going to see here is that in the image, you look at carefully, this is actually, it is in a, this scale is coming. As I told you, this is in a reciprocal space. That is the reason it is in a 5 by nanometer. Now this scale, you are calculating it. How it is coming is by doing the calibration file. By running calibration file, you are getting this particular scale. So how much is this distance? This distance corresponds to how many nanometer. It's basically 1 by nanometer is basically 1 by d. Okay, we will see that particular concept in the reciprocal lattice when we are talking about. Okay, now what you have to do is once you know this, once you have this ring, and you calculate the distance. Let's say R1. Calculate the distance R2. Calculate this distance R3. Okay, calculate this distance R4. So once you calculate this distance, then you take an inverse of that, because d is actually 1 by r. As I told you, this distance is actually r. R is actually d is actually 1 by r. Okay. So the moment you do that, you can automatically get this value. Maybe I'll show you, but you may not have that software which I can give you, or maybe you can do that. Let's say that. Okay, let me. Okay, that software is not working. No. Okay, maybe I can do that in maybe in another class. How to do that? Basically, what we generally do is once you have this value in that software, we identify the spot. Then you put a dot on different location. Then automatically you will get this value. This is actually the 0.29 Armstrong. This is 2050 Armstrong. So basically, this is 41 is actually your 0.29 Armstrong. 42 is actually 0.2050 Armstrong, and 43 is actually your 0.169 Armstrong. Okay, now once you have this image, once you identify, see, even from here you can calculate. Suppose this is 5 nanometer, then you measure how much this is. So basically it will be a 0.25 nanometer. Okay. So based on that, you can actually easily calculate it. Basically, you use scale and you measure R, then you inverse it. That's all. So based on that, you can actually get these values. So now, once you have this value, so now we compare with the standard pattern. So this particular material is iron aluminate. Now if we compare 2.9 Armstrong. 2.9 Armstrong is actually your 100 plane. Yeah. 2050 is actually your, this is actually your 110 plane. Yeah. This is 1.69. 1.69 is your 111 plane. See exactly what we did in the X-ray diffraction when you have a software JCPD file or anything. From there, you can simply compare it. So what you can actually get, instead of 2 theta value, you can get in terms of theta d values. Okay. So if you can do through a d value, automatically you can see the same thing. So corresponding this one, there could be some 2 theta value. The moment you fix a lambda, automatically everything you will get some 2 theta value that you will be getting. So same way you can get a d values also. Now it is 1.465. 1.465 is actually 200. You can see this. Okay. So once you have 45, 1.505, that is not there. Okay. 1.505 is somewhere here in this one. Okay. So this is a way to index a pattern as a ring pattern. This is like, it's not that it is so easy. Once you measure this value, then you inverse it. Done. You will get the value using this scale. You can actually do this particular thing. What I would suggest is you can do this one through image J also. If I have some image, then I can with that I can do that. 1 minute. Show that. It is better. Last class, I think we did this one image. Some reason it is not working. Okay, it is not a major deal. Anyhow, you can actually take this image and you can actually calculate it. Maybe next class I can show you that how to. There is a one more class is there, how to use image analysis software. Okay, so I'll stop here this part, but it's the method is same. Any ring pattern that you can actually index it by measuring this value. Let's say this value, measure it. Let's say this is a 1 nanometer. Let's say this is actually your 0.2 nanometer. You inverse it, 0.2 to 0.5. So like that, you can actually measure this value. By measuring this value, you can get the by inversing that you can get the value, then you can compare it. This is how we do it. If you have any question, you can ask me. Otherwise, next part.
Sir, the values 0.29 that are D value or R value?
No, that is actually D value. You get R value, you inverse it, automatically you will get a, this is 2.9 is actually D value. See, what you measure here is, this is basically R value. Whatever you see, this scale is actually in the R value. Okay. So this is R1. Now you measure R1. D is basically 1 by R. Okay. So from there you actually can.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, we have to just reciprocal 41, like 1 by 41 will give 0.29.
1 by
41, that 41, 42, 43 we are getting. We just have to reciprocal that.
yes, that's all. See, 41 is actually the spot we have taken, number spot. That's all. You measure this distance. 41, what is this distance based on this scale? Let's say this is 5 nanometer, means it would be, let's say, somewhere around 2 Armstrong. Let's say 2 divided by it's somewhere like that. So I do not know what is this value. Now you inverse it. 41, you will get this value. Let's say around you get 0.2. Okay, then 0.2 divided by this, you are getting at 2 nanometer. 1 divided by 2, it will become let's say this is maybe around 4. Okay, let's say this is 4. 1 by 4 is 0.25. So that's what you are getting here.
Okay, sir.
So now you go, let's say 41 to 42, it may be slightly more. Let's say it is 5. It's exactly 5. This is 4, means this is 5. So automatically 1 by 5 is around 0.2. This is what you are seeing here. So when you actually increase it, then automatically that value. For this, I need a DM3 software. Maybe next time I'll load it, because I don't have this laptop. Maybe I have another laptop. Basically, you need a DM3 software. Once you have a DM3 software, but that is not actually open source. That is actually generally you get as a paid. Especially what you need for this calculation is you need a SAT calculator. I do not know. You may get as open source. You may not get as open source. Maybe you have to patch that software. But you can. Otherwise, you can use ImageJ. Using ImageJ, you calculate what is this distance. But a major problem is identifying this central spot, because the central spot is a problem. Because if you don't identify central spot properly, then you may have a problem. So for that you need, because based on this 2 intensity, it will easily can locate that central spot. Basically, you are going to have the intensity profile. This basically we call beam stopper. So beam stopper is there. You know that the intensity profile, that from there you can easily calculate this value. That's what we do in that software does that measurement very easy. Especially locating the central spot is very important. Once you do that, you can easily calculate it. Maybe I have another laptop. Now I'll try to connect that other laptop for this class so that I can show you how to do it. It just only take 2-3 minutes. So this is what the ring pattern all about. But spot pattern is not that straightforward. That I'll teach you, but that doesn't require any software. Okay, it's not that straightforward, but doesn't require any software. You need only one pencil, scale. That's all. Then you can do that entire calculation. So if you have any question, you can ask me now. This part, then I'll go to the next part. So this can be done for any system. It's not. This is whether you talk about cubic, non-cubic. Everything is the procedure is same. Any material, any crystal structure, you can use this method. As good as like what you do on the normal X-ray diffraction method, where you have a standard 2 theta value. Now you compare the 2 theta in a PDF file. What you do here is you have a standard pattern. Only thing you measure that distance, you inverse it, then you compare with your standard patterns. That's all. That is what the difference here. Okay, if you are fine with this first part, then I'll go to the second one. That will take some time. Okay, because I have to show so many equations. Is it fine? Okay. So now, whenever you look at the pattern, you will get lines. Okay, now let's. whenever you look at the pattern, let's say you're getting that. Transmitted. These are already big pattern. Transmitter, let me put it in color. Generally, transmitted one are going to have a much higher intensity compared to the diffracted. So that is the way actually to identify it. Generally, the central beams are actually very high intensity. If you look at any pattern, you can see that difference. Yeah, you can see that. Yeah, you can see this compared to these spots. You can see these are actually very intense. So that's the way to identify. But sometimes we use this one. This is what we call beam stopper. Beam stopper is to have because this intensity profile, sharp intense beam can actually damage your CCD camera. So that is the reason we put this beam stopper, as well as actually when you have beam stopper, these rings would be much better. Its visibility will be much better. Okay, now we know that these are actually some planes. These are another plane. Let's say plane 1, plane 2. This is what I told you in the one of the TEM class, that what you see in a real space is plane. It is 100 is a plane. It is a three-dimensional. You may have maybe some rectangular or maybe a square shape. But what you see in the reciprocal space, everything will be in this part. That part we will discuss in the next class. Okay. Now the plane 1 must be having a HKL value. Let's say H1, K1, L1. So this one, the plane 2 must be having value H1, K2, H2, K2, L2. Okay. But these are not known to us because these HKL values are not known to us. H1, K1, L1 is not known to us. H2, K2, L2 is not known to us. Okay. So what you can actually measure is just if it is given, what you can do is you can measure this in a normal scale itself without first thing when you do all this calculation. Whenever you have an image, it's generally you should not stretch. Stretch means you should not stretch x direction, y direction, because this is we call ratio method. What we are going to do is a ratio method. So when you have image, you stretch in one side in x direction and y direction. This is going to be a problem. You should not stretch it. You can make it bigger, but without affecting that what do you call aspect ratio. That is a very important thing that you should need to remember. Okay. So now what we can do calculation, we can easily identify is what is R1 and R2. In a normal scale itself, we can measure. You have a scale like it's a 5 centimeter, 6 centimeter, 2 centimeter, 3 centimeter that you can measure. So that is what you can see here. So from this image, what we came to know is this distance is 1.1 centimeter. This distance is 0.65 centimeter. Okay, that is possible. If you have this, you print it on a paper, use a scale and identify the distance between this first central spot and the one spot and the another spot. Generally, when you take these points, you try to take a point which are in a 90-degree angle. There is a reason for it. You learn it at some point of time, but you try to take something which is having a 90-degree angle. If you don't have option, then you try a non-90-degree angle, because there is a reason for that which I have to say. Okay, so you take 2 points which are at 90 degrees. So now let me say that I know this value is 1.1 centimeter. This is 0.65 centimeter. That means for me it is known as only R1 and R2. Okay. What we have seen is what we know is this value. So we know what is the relationship between a D1 versus D versus R. In a previous problem that we have seen, what is the relationship between D versus R? D1 is equal to, let's say, D1 L lambda by R1, correct? D is equal to L lambda by R. That means D1 is equal to L lambda by R1. Similar way, as I told you, this is your constant. So in that case, D2 must be L lambda by R2. Okay. So now you do put a D1 by D2. You put D1 by D2 L lambda by R1 into R2 by L lambda. Equals D1 by D2 is equal to R2 by R1. Right? So now we get a relationship between a D versus R beta. Okay. So the next part is what we wanted to know is HKL band. What is the connection between, say, now let's assume that you have a system which is cubic. Okay. For a cubic system, what is the relationship between a D and HKL band? Can we write D is equal to A divided by root of S square plus K square plus L square? For a cubic system, this is what we know, isn't it? Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so in that case, now you have a 2D, which means this one must be having some D and this one must be having 2D. For a cubic system, the lattice parameter is actually constant, so that means A must be same. So now you can write this. D1 is equal to divided by root of H1 square plus K1 square plus L1 square. Similarly, D2 could be A divided by root of H2 square plus K2 square and L2 square. Okay. So now what we can do is let us put again a D1 by D2. That is A divided by root of H1 square plus K1 square plus L1 square into root of H2 square plus K2 square plus L2 square divided by A. This will go up. Then in that case, it will become root of H2 square plus K2 square plus L2 square divided by H1 square plus K1 square plus L1 square. Let's say this is equation 1 and this is equation 2. So now compare equation 1 and 2. In that case, both the case you have a D1 by D2. That means R2 by R1 is equal to root of H2 square plus K2 square plus L2 square into H1 square, K1 square, L1 square. So simple. Now we got a relationship between a. Now this is very easy to calculate. See what you are seeing in this picture. If you know R2 and R1, you can do calculation of R2 and R1. Okay. Once you know R2 by R1, automatically that is actually corresponding to your two planes which are big. Okay. Means let's say that for that what you have to do is first thing is let's say that this is your this is by R2 by R1. How much is R2 by R1 for this system? 0.65 divided by 1.1. How much it is? How much it is?
0.59.
0.59, perfect. Okay, this is fine. Now we got R2 by R1. 1 minute, I'll check this. Hello. Yes, sir. I'm taking class. Okay. Okay. So now, what is actually we are getting is R2 by R1. So what you have to do is now you have to, if you know all allowed system, let's say now this particular material, what we are discussing is given as FCC. Means but looking at a pattern also you can say whether it is FCC or not. Okay, by looking at a given axis, sometimes you can actually interpret it what kind of material this is. Okay, in a cubic, a different pattern, you can easily, there are only 3-4 different varieties are there. You can, looking at a pattern, you can say whether it's FCC or BCC. For this pattern, let's say that I know the crystal structure. Okay, this is FCC. Now we know what is the allowed reflection for FCC. Correct? What are the allowed reflection for FCC?
So 3, 4, 8, 11.
Yes. Okay. Now, so this is my allowed reflection: 111, 200, 220, 311. So that we need to calculate it. Okay. Now what you do is for all the allowed reflection, you calculate h square plus k square plus l square value. Okay. Now you calculate it for all the allowed reflection, you keep these values. Okay, now you compare R2 by R1. R2 by R1 must be, this will be like you do, the distance is reversed. So the smaller one, you should take it. Okay. So this is R2 by R1 is 4 divided by root 4 by root 3. Now you try to calculate, now you can do one thing. Because what you got is 0.59. Okay, so now you try to compare this value and this value. How much this is coming? 1.732 by 200. Because this is what we have calculated. It means this is actually your h square plus k square plus l square value. Okay, what is this value? You compare these two values.
0.866.
But that is not correct. Okay, now you compare these two values.
.6124.
And what you have measured is 0.59. That means 0.61. Now you compare these two values.
So 0.5.
0.5. Okay. That means what you measured is 0.59. Because you have measured in a scale that you do not know exactly, that means these two values are correct. Okay. So now what we have identified is actually the family of plane. Okay. Now family of plane means the distance which is having, now it is root 8. Root 8 is actually, this is basically what we did is, this is R2, this is R1. Okay. This is what we did, 0.5. R2 is something. Let's say R2 is this one. That is actually your, I'll draw this one again because we need this value. Okay. Okay, this is your R2, this is your R1. This is actually your now 111. Correct? R2 is actually 111. R1 is actually 220. Okay. I'll remove this part. Okay. Now I have a two plane. The angle between these two planes is how much? What is the angle plane between these two planes?
90 degrees, sir.
90 degree. Okay. If we go back to the, I do not know, means you have to go back to your school level. Vector, when you have a two plane, how to calculate the angle between a two plane? We can do like cos theta is equal to, let's say this is h1 k1 L1. That means this is hk, h2 k2 L2. Okay, that means h1 into h2 plus k1 into k2 plus L1 into L2 divided by root of h1. This is given somewhere here. It's k1 square plus L1 square plus k2 square plus L2 square. Okay. So now what you have to get is, what is cos 90?
0, sir.
Okay, that is the reason I said you keep a point which is at 90 degree, because getting a 0, because we need not to worry about what is going to be there in the bottom. You should get on the top side 0. That is very easy to get it. Okay. Now let us do it for a 111 and 200. Okay, do the calculation. Now 1 into 2 plus 1 into 2. Forget about bottom part. Bottom part is required only when you have other than 90 degree. Then you have a 1 into 0. So what you are getting is 4. That means this is not actually the exact member. Okay. What you can do is, either you can put a -1 here. Once you put a -1 here, it will become -2 plus 2, it will become 0. Or you can put you keep this one, you put a -2 here. Okay, that way also will become 0. Either way is fine. Let us put it this way. Okay, let me just put a 1 bar means -1. So now you do this calculation, -1 into 2 plus 1 into 2 plus 1 into 0. So this will become -2 plus 2 will become 0. That means this is what you are actually the real member here. So this is what actually the -1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 0. This is what actually your real member. Okay. Now, how to do the other members that we need to calculate? Okay. So how to do that is, let's say that you have a unit cell. Let's say, what is this plane? The front plane. What is this plane?
So 100.
100. If this is 100, what is this plane? The backside plane?
1 bar 0, 0, sir.
1 bar 0, 0. Same way, now what you do is, you have this face exactly in the opposite, you have another face. That means this could be 1 bar, 1 bar. Correct? Because this is 1 bar, 1 1. This could be 1 bar, 1 bar. Similar way, this is actually, if this is 2 to 0, this will become 2 bar, 0. Done? Okay, now I can remove all these points. Okay, now it is direct. Now we have identified. Now we have identified 4 points. Okay. The next part is actually when you have this vector, what you can actually do is suppose you have this like this. So now you connect it. So let's say this is A vector, this is B vector. What is this distance? Generally A vector plus B vector. Okay. So this is what we do it. Okay, this is how we do it. That means if you wanted to know this point, let's say this point you wanted to know, what you have to do is you have to add this one. For adding this one, 1 plus 2, 3, minus 1 plus 2, it is 1, 0 minus 1, 1 bar. Right? Same way you can do this, this point also you can calculate. Minus 2, 1, that is actually 1 bar. Minus 2, minus 1, 3 bar. 0 minus 1, 1 bar. Okay. So similar way, now you add this 2, it will become 3 bar, 1 bar, then 1. Okay. In fact, you to cross check it, you can see these two phases are opposite 90 degree. This is 3 means this is 3 bar. This is 1 bar means this must be 1. This is 1 bar. Okay. Now you add these two part. Now this is actually 1, 3, 1. So this is 1, 3, 1. Opposite must be 1 bar, 3 bar, 1 bar. Then. So what we did actually here is, now we have already identified all those parts. Okay, but this is not, we have done an indexing of pattern, but this is not complete. Why? Because see, now when you talk about it, let's say this is what you're talking about, the plane that you are talking about. Let's say that this is the plane that you are talking about. You have to define this zone axis. Okay, now say this plane is, I'm saying these are the plane parallel, depending on which axis. So you have to define the beam axis, because this can, until and unless you identify a zone axis, this whole process is not complete. That means, so basically if you look at this pattern, if you look at the pattern, there is actually a line which is actually coming. Say this one, we have to identify this axis, we need to identify. If you look at it, this axis we need to identify. What is this axis? So this is what we call zone axis. This is what the zone axis. So let's say that you have a two plane. Let's say this is 1 0 1 1 0 plane, and you have a 1 bar 3 bar 0 plane. There is actually a common axis which is actually going. This is what we call zone axis. You tilt this one, then automatically you will see some other plane must be actually obeying the Bragg condition. So that means you should need to identify what is this axis. With respect to that particular axis only that you are talking about this plane. This is what we call zone axis. Okay. So this is we call axis normal to the plane parallel or plane perpendicular. So this is what we call zone axis. We need to identify the zone axis. So to identify the zone axis, basically the vector cross product. Let's say that this is a direction. For this direction, this if it is lying in a these two planes are lying in this direction, means let's say you identify some direction. Let's say one direction. Then when you do vector cross product must be 0. We will see that. But identifying this zone axis, we have to use the matrix method, which I'll show you now. Okay. Now what we are going to do is we are going to we wanted to identify what is my zone axis. So zone axis is something that it is actually what further part we are taking is we would like to know, we'll take this 2 points, let's say 1 bar 1 1. What we are doing is 1 bar 1 1 and 2 2 0 that we are taking. To identify the zone axis, you can do I bar, J bar, K bar, you write it -1 1 1 2 2 0. Okay, now you calculate this value. It will become I is actually 1 into 0 minus 1 into 2 minus j. Then you have this is -1 into 0. This is 1 into 2 plus k bar -1 into 2, then 1 into 2. So this is actually 0. This is minus 2i. This is 0. This is minus 2j. Then this will become minus 4k. So it will become
Plus 2j maybe.
Yes, sir. Plus 2j.
Yeah, this is plus 2j. Okay, fine. So now in this case, you make it everything, because everything you can divide into 2. It's like you can write I plus j minus 2k. So you can write this one. 1 minus 2 is an axis. Basically, this is 1 1. This is basically -1 1 minus 2. So this is actually your direction. I'm not sure. Let me check this direction. What is this? Okay. Now this is your direction. To cross verify your direct, this is actually your zone axis. Zone axis is, now I have identified zone axis is -1 1 2 bar. Okay. This is basically 1 bar 1 2 bar. This is your zone axis direction. Good. To cross verify, you can actually do that this cross product, because this is zone axis means this cross product must be 0. Now we do the calculation now. This one -1 into -3 plus 1 into -3. This is -2 into -1. This is actually +3. No, this is actually a problem. I think what I've taken is -1. It's -1. Right, 1 bar -1 bar to correct. It should be -3. This is actually a +1. +1 -3, then this is actually +2. This is actually 0. Now you multiply all these points, the cross product will be 0. Okay. So now you do this one. For this zone axis, actually you try to calculate it and see for other points, other planes also, it must be 0. You try also, means you try for this system, whether you are getting 0 or not. Maybe someone can try this system and tell me whether you are getting 0 or not. If you are doing it, if it is coming 0, that means what you have done is correct. Can you try that?
Zero, sir.
Okay, fine. Now what we have done is we have done an indexing of pattern. So this is how you will be finally you are getting. Okay. So this is your indexing of pattern with the for here we have done 1, 1 bar 2 is actually the zone axis for this one. Now what we did is something slightly different. We have taken, we assigned some other value so that way. Okay, fine. So now indexing a pattern is one thing. Okay, how we are going to connect this indexing pattern with the image, which I told you that I'm going to connect it with the nano rod. Let's say this rod is broken. Okay, so let me say that this is my actually one bar. Let's say one bar 2 is my zone axis. These are my planes which I have indexed. This is my image. Okay. What I can do is if this is my, let's say this is my 111 plane means, let's say now you look at carefully, this is your 100 plane, this is your 100 direction. Okay. Now what is happening is I have a plane from origin. I am going from the transmitted beam. I am going there. This is my 100 plane. This is my 100 direction. Okay. Same way. Now what you can do is this is one direction plane means this is my, let's say now I have in front of me I have a 111 plane. You just forget about all these things, family of planes. This is a 111 plane. That means this is actually your 111 direction. To take any plane, you are going to have a similar concept. This is how. Okay, this is what we do it. So even on this another image, you can see here, if this is actually your 002 plane, which you are identify using this indexing of pattern, 002 and 001 are same direction. So that means you are having this is 001 direction. But one problem is there, which you should need to remember. Maybe I'll just show you that nowadays with all the new machines, you don't have this problem, but old machine, there was a problem. There is actually a problem, which I can show you why that is actually a problem. Here. So now, if you look at these two plates, let's say that this is actually what you are doing, indexing a pattern, you are doing index pattern is happening at a backfocal plane. This is your image plane. Okay. What you are doing is, let's say that you are from this you are identifying this is, let's say 111 plane. Now what you are saying, now something is there in the image. From that you are saying that this is 111 plane means this is my 111 direction. This is what you are identifying in the image. But the electron beams are not actually going in a straight line. Okay. The electron beams are actually traveling like this. It is having a spiral path. Okay, when you have a spiral path, the problem what you are going to get is this exactly what you see in this direction need not to be at same location. So this is what actually generally in an older machine with a standard crystal, we actually different magnification. we do a calibration. Okay, this is we call rotation calibration. Until and unless you do a rotation calibration, you cannot actually convert what you see in the diffraction pattern to image. But nowadays, with all the new machines, you need not to do rotation calibration, but that is already done in the machine itself. Whatever you are actually getting the diffraction pattern in the what you see in the diffraction pattern, you index it exactly that you can actually put it in the image. This is what is actually we are doing here. So this is how we can actually do a calculation for identifying orientation of any crystal or orientation of, like, say, you have done a plastic deformation, grains are oriented in some direction, everything that you can actually identify using this approach. Okay. So I'll give you some patterns for you to analyze and you can understand much better. Maybe I'll give you one or two assignment. I have some pattern which I'll give you so that you can understand much better. So this is whatever the technique which I told is actually it's valid only for the cubic system, not for the non-cubic system. Because in non-cubic you have this problem because the relationship between so this is for a cubic system. Okay, fine. For a cubic system, what you have is D is equal to A divided by root of H square plus K square plus L square. But non-cubic system, you have these values are actually you have more than one lattice parameter. Sometimes A is equal to B is equal to not equal to C. Sometimes alpha is equal to beta is equal to gamma is not equal to 90 degree. And you cannot use this one. That is the reason you may require a software. Using software, you can actually do that. So that part, I don't know if we have a time, then I can do it. If we don't have time, I can do that one. So that required software to do that analysis. Okay. So this is what is particular indexing of the pattern. So you can try on your own few system, which I'll send you as an assignment, and then you will get an idea how to do that. So I'll stop here. If you have any question, you can ask.
Sir, in the initial ratio of FCC allowed plane,
reflection.
is it necessary to use the first plane, that is 111 plane?
Not
Or we
required.
can...
Not required. No, not required. This time it came. Sometime you may get a something like this. So somewhere you get something like this. So these two plane you are actually looking at it. But see, generally, what is the advantage is that it will be either of this plane only you will get. See, when you look at a diffraction, the intensity wise also. The intensity wise also, these planes are going to have higher intensity. That way, you always get either one or two. First or second pattern, you try and automatically it will actually you will get a ratio at some of the other plane. See, look at the intensity. This is actually going to be the second one is showing the highest intensity. Generally, the first one or second one must be having highest intensity. If you look at, as I told you earlier, the XID patterns will be like this. Okay, same way you will see that. Okay, so what you see is actually going to be there. Either a first one. This is because you are having a superlattice reflection here. So that is the reason this is not actually ordered structure. This is having this is actually ordered structure. That is the reason I have another reflection here. BCC B2 structure. I am seeing this peak. Otherwise, if it is simple BCC, we would be starting from here only. So in general, you should you try first and second. It should work. It will work. It will not go beyond that. Until and unless you block it, the black so much of the first and second pattern that if you are getting it solved, it should work. Okay. Any other question? So I'll give you a few examples, means few patterns, known patterns, so that you can actually try and learn them. Then only you can understand the part.